Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Well, guys, Bitcoin is printing some strong arguments to be made from both the bears and the bulls lately. So I want to take a look at a few Bitcoin and altcoin charts to see if there's any hints to where this market could be headed in the near future. I want to start things off by looking at the 4-hour chart. And guys, by the way, if you have appreciated these live streams and my level-headed approach on the market, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. Those things go a long way for such a new channel. But guys, I mean, we've been all over this trend with Bitcoin. And when I say that there's some mixed signals right now is honestly, with that dump on Friday, we broke some very serious structure. Now, there's a couple of different things that could be happening, basically. Either one, we are actually starting a very bad, I mean, if you want to be a moon boy, a very bearish trend that could be extended for a very serious amount of time, possibly even a bear market. But that being said, guys, it's not necessarily the case, because there is a strong argument to be made that this was very similar to basically the liquidation event we got around COVID, where basically we ended up going parabolic from there, right? We had that one last big scare in the market and then went absolutely parabolic. So it is possible that that's what we had right now. I have a few reasons why I don't necessarily think that's true. But guys, even if we do end up setting a bigger, more bearish trend here because of this little break that we had here, understand that it's still possible that we bounce first, we get a recovery, we retest resistance and get rejected from there. I mean, we don't have to. Obviously, breakouts happen sometimes, but something that I really want to put on your radar is because I saw the same people get wrecked on the exact same trade setup twice. We were ready for them both times on this channel. Is just basically after we ended up breaking our uptrend, right? Our very serious uptrend. I'm actually going to change the colors here just so it's easier to see. But basically on this uptrend we had on Bitcoin, we ended up, this would have been the last time we had a high and a higher high, therefore confirming a higher low, which we ended up losing, right? We ended up losing that structure there. And after that happens, we just end up chasing the price with the Fibonacci, just like I always do when there's a change in structure like that. And we ended up coming right into that swing fail pocket between my 1 and my 115, a very typical Fibonacci setup that I look for. Basically a swing fail zone, a liquidity grab, a fake out, whatever, a failed auction close, whatever you want to call it. That is very much so what we ended up getting there. And guys, after that, we end up setting a new low, right? From that range, we had this low here, and we ended up pushing to a new lower low. So same thing, pulling the Fibonacci from our local high there where we had our fake out and started that down, that little micro downtrend. I shouldn't even say micro, it is a 4-hour, but just that little downtrend for the midterm there, we ended up bouncing, which you guys know we played along from here based on a Stuber fib, very natural. But then we end up getting that push right up to this level. And the whole climb, I was basically warning about this level that we have a potential swing fail up here. And we did get that exact same setup, right? Again, we went right up to that fib pocket between the 1 and the 115, my red box. That, you know, we have the same range top approximately. So we're in some sort of a big range. And we got a swing fail. We end up getting a retest. We get another swing fail. So it's slightly higher, but we're still not breaking that swing fail pocket that I love to have on my fibs, and why I always have the 115 fib there as invalidation, basically. And that's why I was saying, unless we end up breaking above 127.2K, I am going to be cautious. I'm going to be looking at hedging for shorts and that sort of thing. And guys, right now we have potential for the exact same thing. And I'm not saying we have to get this. I'm not saying we have to even bounce up to these levels. And if we do, we could absolutely break out. But what I want to put on your radar is, please, for the love of God, don't do what everybody's been doing lately and just FOMOing longs into resistance. I know that the price always looks strongest at resistance. It always looks weakest at support. It's very hard to trade. We all know we're supposed to buy low, sell high, buy support, sell resistance. But when it comes time, it looks like it's going to do the opposite. So a lot of people continue to FOMO into resistance because they don't understand basic market structure. Now, guys, again, we could absolutely just blast off through here. However, if we get up to this pocket, just give Bitcoin a chance to either pump a little bit higher and start longing pullbacks after that, or start de-risking yourself in those levels. I'm not saying that we have to be bearish here. Just like, guys, I wasn't bearish at this level. I ended up taking a short there. Those of you in my Telegram were well aware of that. Those of you who have been following on these streams were well aware of that. But I was only taking a short there because I said I basically couldn't sleep at night if I didn't have some short exposure as we're trading into resistance. And guys, like I said, I pointed this out in advance. I said in my Telegram when I was starting to build a short, basically, we had a micro Stuber fib lining up with a macro swing fail zone of mine. We had retail long starting. Retail traders were trying to long the little bit of dip as it began. And I said, basically, guys, this is going to be fuel for the fire if we end up crossing that. And we did. And like I said, I still had part of my long position running as a moon bag, and I also hedged myself short. So I was it was very nice to be in this stress-free position while most people are in full emotional roller coaster with the choppy price action. Guys, another thing that I was talking about was the liquidations. There was a ton of liquidity building down around 107K. I was pointing these things out before we got that drop. A lot of people are saying it was unpredictable. There was so many warning signs in the market, you guys, and I gave that to you here. So if that is something that interests you guys, you want to see more examples, how I pull fibs, how I look at market structure, my overall thoughts in the market in general, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code, get into that Telegram there, as well as when I started to see signs of strength yesterday, right? I pointed out, hey, I saw my first sign of strength, took a little bit of a scalp there and just started paying myself on the way, basically. Also pointing out when I was seeing a little bit of weakness today. So we're going to have to see how that one plays out yet. It's still early to say if that plays out. But guys, also my partners at BloFin until October 20th. So you got about another week here, are currently giving my followers this promotion as basically a celebration for the launch of the new YouTube channel. So you can find basically the information here. And again, that goes for my followers who have signed up under me on BloFin. That also obviously gets you access to my private Telegram. So if that is something that interests you, make sure you scan the QR code, get in there. Like I said, sharing some trade setups and just my overall thoughts on the market. But guys, another thing that I want to point out is, like I just said, that I was warning you guys about liquidity pockets, right? I had pointed out that basically as we started building liquidity to the upside, that ended up pushing the price to the upside a little bit. Then we started seeing a bunch of liquidity building below us. So the market makers wanted to grab that. We shot to the upside as we had a bunch of liquidity forming to the upside. And after that, and this is where I said middle to late last week, that we had a big cluster of stuck high leverage liquidations down at approximately 107K. Now, to be fully honest, fully transparent, I did not expect it to happen in one day like that, but I did expect this move to happen. It just happened a little quicker than I was expecting. So yeah, obviously tariff tweets and that sort of thing. Yeah, that was obviously a little bit of a spark with a lot of gasoline on the fire down here. And yeah, basically it was already in the chart as a possibility, not necessarily a probability. But as I said, guys, I was not bearish when I took this trade, right? Look right here. I was feeling bullish, but basically going to ladder into another head short just in case we get a macro rejection, since the red box is my macro resistance swing fail zone, planning to ladder into a short between here and 127.2K. Just for the fact that we were trading at resistance. I wasn't bearish. I was just setting my emotions to the side and trading the charts for what they are, because that's such a tight invalidation. But guys, coming back to that liquidity, this liquidations indicator here, is notice that we grabbed all that liquidity to the downside. That's what I was warning in the Telegram, why I think that, we might see a bit of a bounce. And now we're starting to form high leverage liquidation levels above us. And notice where those levels end. Basically, the last gold bar here is up at around, right at our all-time highs, basically, right? So we're starting to see those liquidation levels, those liquidation pockets are starting to form above us. And like I said, it would make a lot of sense if we keep building liquidity up there. It would make a lot of sense for the market makers to want to grab that. And then likely you're going to see a bunch of liquidation and liquidity forming below us. And that's where the market maker is going to want to grab that again, right? So just something to watch for there. But yeah, we get these warning signs, right? We had the warning signs in the market before we got that. I was also talking about the long short ratio, right? Looking at retail longs and retail shorts. This is what I was talking about in that screenshot, that I was looking at the retail longs were starting to climb aggressively on this dip. So that just adds fuel to the fire potentially, right? And if we look at the 1 hour, it's even more clear. Let's wait for this to load here. But when we got this cross, right, when we saw a retail cross above their, basically above their shorts, that's when we really started to capitulate, because as they're trying along the dip, that's liquidity for the market makers to push it lower, right? So it was all there, you guys. Right now, I actually currently just took another little bit of a short. I still have my other one running, but I felt like taking another one just because, like I said this morning, there was a little bit of a sign of weakness. We're just testing a potential bearish Stuber fib here. So more so just starting because we got into that swing fail zone. It's just a chance for me to ladder into a short position in this red pocket here, and just having a very tight stop loss, right? Because if I end up getting stopped out, that means I would hit all 3 of my entries in this level. I would basically be having an average entry somewhere in the middle here, and that would make for a very small loss, right? That's the thing. It's not about always being right, but having controlled losses when they come. So realistically, even at a 25x trade, like the short that I took, I'm still only looking at about a 5 or a 6% loss if I take a loss here. And obviously I don't have my entire account on that position. So keeping those losses small if it happens. Basically, if you are stressed out, your heart rate goes up when you enter a position, you're probably over leveraged, you're probably using too much margin, you're probably using more than you should because you're uncomfortable with it. But that's basically what I'm looking for right now. Bitcoin dominance, just to basically look for what can the altcoins expect, you guys, is Bitcoin dominance. It did end up respecting that Stuber fib that I pointed out on the daily, but it has hit its first target. And that's basically when we got that capitulation event in the altcoins. So guys, I actually, we're hearing those theories that, hey, capitulation happened and that big liquidation event happened, so therefore it's smooth sailing from here. I feel better about that with altcoins because they got such a flush on Friday, you guys. I know I've heard horror stories of people who gamble with that cross leverage and stuff like that. I will never touch that myself, and Friday was a perfect example why. But yeah, this just the fact that the Bitcoin dominance got the bounce, hit the target. Altcoins got a crazy flush on Friday. Maybe that's the capitulation for altcoins to end up going on their next leg for the ending phase of the cycle. Basically, we're going to have to see. But the fact that a lot of people are comparing this to the COVID dump, I have mixed feelings about that, because yes, there was obviously a massive liquidation event. However, guys, understand that the last 2 cycles, we basically went for 152 weeks for a climb, right? From bear market to, low to bull market peak. We went 152 weeks and eventually come back to the macro liquidations band indicator. So the longer term liquidation levels, right? And that's something that Bitcoin did during the COVID crash. Whereas right now, where we ended up crashing, Bitcoin isn't even close to that, right? Yeah, the altcoins did it, but Bitcoin not even close. So I don't see reason why Bitcoin has definitely had to have bottomed at this point. I am here for it if it happens. If we invalidate my bearish theories, we end up climbing above 130K and break my 115 fib, then I'm here for it. Guys, I much prefer we go parabolic. Okay. A lot of people think I'm a perma bear just because I call the charts how they are. I want this to go parabolic because parabolic bull markets are so fun and easy. Unfortunately, reality doesn't necessarily want that, or the market makers don't necessarily care what we think or what we want. So just trading the charts for what they are. But I am seeing those reasons why Bitcoin could end up climbing and retesting resistance. And like I said, from there, if it ends up starting to staircase higher above my invalidation level, then we can start playing those dips from there. But just as it stands right now, I want to be a little bit careful. Something very cool, guys, just another indicator that I want to bring up. I haven't really looked at this one much in the past, but this is basically a capital flow index. So what I can do with this, it's another MDX indicator, but I basically chose to picked out some of the assets, some of the coins that I typically trade most lately. And this indicator will basically show me the strength of what these coins are so I can keep them on my radar without actually being on those charts alone. And also when deciding what coin I want to trade, right? Because as I said, I'm more, as far as being bullish, I'm more bullish on trading those longs on altcoins at this point. Now, understand, I am never touching cross leverage. I am always using isolated. I have risk management in mind, and I'm not always bullish on altcoins. It's more so that when I see possibilities that Bitcoin could be bottoming and the market is finding some footing and finding some support, at that point I can start looking at altcoins. So, for example, when Hype, the green line here, when Hype was showing a ton of strength, that's where I ended up taking a bit of a long on Hype, just more so looking at it as a scalp because I got in late, but there was a few things lining up with some of my indicators, right? I was printing higher sell signals and higher buy signals on the 5-minute trend master. And as well, like I said, with that indicator, it was showing that Hype was one of the top performers for as far as altcoins that I'm watching. So I was at least willing to take a bit of a scalp and update my stop losses very quickly. So actually, since losing this level, I have taken profit on half that position and the rest will get stopped at break even if it happens. So just looking at it as a scalp, but a super cool indicator that I'm excited to keep my eye on more during these streams, because I think as far as scalping and stuff, it'll just kind of give us a better idea of which coins to be watching as far as my favorites that I like looking at. And lately, I mean, the last day or two, Solana and Hype have been performing quite well with that. So very cool. But as it stands, guys, some altcoins are facing potential resistance, right? I was warning about this purple box up here with Ethereum before. Now the fact that we've set a lower low, we just have a confirmed lower high. So we have potential resistance coming up, basically starting at 44.50. If we get up there, you have to start being careful, potential resistance. Solana, same thing, potential resistance from a fib pull from our lower high there. This resistance would start around 217 US dollars, in my opinion. Hype. Let's see what the 4-hour is looking like for Hype. Basically, same thing, right? We are actually getting close to potential resistance. So just understand, guys, that, not all hope is lost in the market yet. Just be careful around those resistance level, right? I don't want to hear those horror stories of people just FOMOing long into resistance. Wait for those proper setups, or at least have proper invalidations on the setups you take. Don't just, assume that your liquidation level is far enough, because that's not always the case. Unfortunately, sometimes, especially with altcoins where it's an illiquid market, sometimes you get those order books that just completely flush out, and, there's worse case scenarios than your stop loss, basically. But I hope you guys have all been, not only surviving, but thriving in these market conditions. For those of you who have been in my Telegram channel, those of you who have been following along on these live streams, hopefully you guys are just crushing it, because, we were very ready for this downside move. At this point, it does get a little bit tricky. We're kind of right in the middle of a gigantic range right now. So it's obviously just a little bit more tricky, but as we get up towards resistance or down to support, we'll have some better ideas. But until then, basically looking at lower time frame stuff only, because it's tough to say what's going to happen in the midterm from here, just because we are in the middle of a range. So, and guys, if you do, like I said earlier, you appreciate the level-headed approach, do me a favor, hit that like button. And for those of you who are new to these streams, do me a favor, subscribe. You don't want to miss these live streams. Trying real hard to be the voice of reason in the market these days, because there is just carnage and panic out there. So, and guys, welcome. Thank you for being here with me. Brian, good to see you here. Hurley, great to see you. Verace, hopefully I'm saying that right. So first comment there, wondering 92K before 130K. I actually have very strong concerns if that would happen, because we would be just confirming a downtrend. We would be setting a much lower low, and structure of the macro time frame would be absolutely wrecked. In my opinion, that is the signs of an actual bear market forming. So I hope we would not go down to those levels first. Obviously, that can be invalidated, but that's just kind of my thoughts right now. You would be totally changing the structure of the long-term trend, and that would give me great concerns. Habu, good to see you here once again. Thank you for being here, my friend. Other Stu number 2, welcome. Do I have thoughts as far as going back and retesting that low? Do I think we're off to a new high? Honestly, that is something that's also on my radar, and one of the reasons why I was willing to take a little bit of a tight stop loss short in this scenario here is just because I absolutely think it's possible that we would retest support of this range. You know, if we end up doing something like this, not saying we have to, but I would be way more okay looking for swing position longs if we come back down and retest the lows, basically. Now, we'll have to see what happens with that. I mean, I would always rather be a buyer at support. Obviously, I would not be shorting into those levels. But one thing to consider is if the market is going to, you know, make a fool out of everybody and cause max pain, I mean, chances are it would capitulate like it did and then reverse without giving retail a chance to get back in at those lower prices. So there's something to be said for that maybe we do just continue higher from here, right? But generally speaking, I like to see those pullbacks and like to see those retests. So open to anything at this point. If we do come down to these levels, yeah, I'll be looking at, you know, especially if I have some shorts open, I will be looking at hedging longs in these support levels, but we're going to have to see what happens there. Red Panda, love to see you here again, my friend. Welcome. Yeah, even Stu is in the Stu's chat. Yeah, another Stu. Love to see it. Us Stu's got to stick together. Dan Rab, good to see you here. Welcome, my friend. The size of this liquidation was far greater than the COVID dump. You are absolutely correct. But again, that is in the altcoin market rather than Bitcoin. And it's a lot easier to liquidate things like that have much thinner order books. And also consider that, yes, the liquidation was a lot bigger than COVID, but the market is significantly bigger. There's a way higher market cap this time. So as far as the ratio goes, I'm not sure it's actually a bigger percent loss in the market. Just obviously dollar-wise, it's massive. Want to check the Doge chart? I sure will. If you are setting multiple limit orders on BloFin, how do you find your stop loss amount? Basically, if you are looking to ladder in, you need to, I mean, you can look on Google or basically any search engine, I suppose, and find position size calculators and that sort of stuff. Trading calculators. You'll have to play around with it. At this point, I have certain position sizes that I'm comfortable with, and I kind of have a ballpark idea of how much my losses are going to be if it happens. But yeah, you can definitely look for some trading calculators basically online. You can punch in your leverage and your entries and that sort of thing. I'm not sure if it'll let you do. Basically, you might have to figure out your average entry by yourself by figuring out the math on your own. So thanks for the video, Stu. Thank you for continuing to join the streams, Habu. Always appreciate it. And Hurley, yes, I will take a look at Doge real quick. Let's take a quick peek. Oh, that is a massive wick. Honestly, guys, it's hard for me to analyze things that have this. It's just like Bitcoin. We're obviously in a massive range right now. So it's a lot harder because basically the way I see it, we could basically come right back up towards resistance, something like that, and test resistance up here. Or at this point, we could end up filling the majority of this wick, because very often when we get these large wicks in the cycle, it is a warning that that's where the market is going to trade to. It's a little bit of a heads up and we get drawn towards that level. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get some sort of a retest. So again, the market's in a very dangerous place right now just because charts got absolutely destroyed with that move on Friday. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now. But yeah, like I said, Doge, Bitcoin, Ethereum, basically every coin out there right now has such crazy wicks and stuff like that, that it's just, we're in the middle of a very large range on basically everything. That even includes the S&P 500. It's not just crypto. It's not like this was an attack just on crypto. The entire global market, I think it was something like $1 trillion got wiped out of the S&P. Or out of the stock market. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure that's what I heard. So, and as well, you guys, if I bring up the trend master on several different time frames, we have created this. I was warning about this on Ethereum. I was warning about this on Solana. And we can see it on Doge, is that we are printing lower sell signals. We lost the trends of higher buy signals on a lot of coins. So there's just that little bit of confluence that we might want to be cautious if we start getting to those bearish fibs, basically, right? So we got to tread carefully right now, no matter which way you're thinking. Because like I said, I could be very wrong about my bearish theories. We could blast right through this 130K. It's just good to be cautious of resistance when we get to those levels, you guys. Check the range on that candle, on the wick on that candle. Yeah, exactly. 60% wick. I mean, there was so many altcoins that dropped 99 point whatever percent in the matter of like 3 minutes. It was absolutely wild. So yeah, there was a crazy liquidation event, and I think it could be reset for altcoins. But just understand that it's very possible Bitcoin's in a very large distribution range, and they're going to keep screwing with retail by sending it just slightly higher into that swing fail liquidity grab zone, get everybody FOMOing long into resistance, and then crushing those hopes and dreams. So just be careful when we end up getting to those levels once again, you guys. And guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So if you guys did find this stream useful, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss these streams. And as I mentioned, if you want access to my private Telegram channel where I share some of my trade setup ideas, some of my trade theories, just some of my favorite trade setups, how I use my indicators, how I pull fibs, how I look at market structure. You know, this big move that was blindsided so many on Friday, we were ready for it, you guys. So if that's something that interests you and just approaching the market for what it is with a level head, just looking at structure for what it is, you know, I trade charts, not tweets, not fundamentals. So if that interests you, do yourselves a favor, get into my Telegram. Like I said, my partners at BloFin currently have this promo running for you guys until the 20th of October. So guys, with that, thank you so much for being here with me once again. And be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you have not at this point. Look forward to doing more of these with you guys. Catch you on the next one. Stay safe, my friends.